Hey everyone, it's Sean. I'm back with another tutorial. This time we are in Illustrator, and I'm going to be teaching you some fundamentals about the pen tool. This is probably just some serious review for you guys, but it's pretty useful to go over and make sure that you have the basics down. So let's just get right into it. This file is in your Week 4 Illustrator Basics folder. It's under the Pen Tool, Pen Tools Demo, and in it I have created this document for you. I just want to point out there are two layers here. There's an examples layer, which is locked. You can work on the working layer here. So you'll have the ability to see all these shapes if you want. You can click on it and you can see all the anchor points that have been made for reference to sort of how to best draw these shapes. But in terms of the bottom section, you'll just be tracing over it to sort of recreate these shapes to the best of your ability. So let's just dive right in. I'm going to lock this example layer again, and I'm going to switch up to my working layer here. I'm going to hit P for pen tool, which is up here on the left hand side. And the first shape, pretty easy. Drop an anchor point, draw up to the next anchor point, and draw to the final anchor point. This is called an open shape. There's no closed path here. We can just leave it on stroke if we want. I'm going to change my stroke over to something a little bit more obvious. I'm going to make it purple. And there we go. So it's just 3 anchor points. They're all straight angles, no curves in here at all. I'm just going to pause the video for a second because there's a really loud truck outside of my window. Hey everyone, sorry about that. I'm back. And where were we? We were talking about open shapes where the path doesn't connect to the end of the path, doesn't connect to the beginning of the path. This is pretty easy shape to cover. Nothing new and exciting there. So on to the next shape. The next shape is a closed path. Again, all just straight angles, nothing really crazy here. You can just click on each point and close the shape. So when we close the shape, just to show you, right now we have it set to stroke. You could set it to fill when it's closed, and it will create an all-encompassed closed shape. Pretty standard. And now over here, we have something that includes a 45-degree angle. So to get that, you will click on each point, just creating a regular shape. And to close the shape, you can hold Shift and you can drag it down to this last point, and it will create a perfectly straight line on that 45-degree angle. Everything will line up nicely, and we have a closed shape that is a triangle right there. So to move on to a little bit more of a intermediate, difficult sort of pen tool, sort of basic, is curves. To create a really basic curve here, when we click down, if we hold Shift and drag in one direction, it will create a shape that is sort of based off of the geometry of that handle, of that sort of vertex. I'm going to drag it up to this dotted line here, and then I'm going to come over here to this other path, and I'm going to pull down, and I'm going to make sure that my handle matches the same height, and I'm going to hit V to get off of this, and you'll notice that we'll have a nice sort of semicircle shape. To sort of step this one up, we can do the same thing, drag so that our handles reach the dotted lines. Come over here, we can drag down so that our handles reach the dotted lines, and we can continue the path on into infinity if we wanted to by just continuously sort of dragging out, pulling up, and so on and so forth until everything sort of keeps on matching, and you can create a really nice squiggly line that way. Finally, this is a curve on a 45-degree angle. So we will select, or we'll place an anchor point. We will hold Shift and drag out so that our handle reaches the dotted line. And we'll come to the middle, and we'll just place, I believe we can just place just go to the middle, place an anchor point there, and then drag out another line so that our handle reaches the dotted lines, and we can let go. And there we have a nice S-curve 45-degree shape. So these are all pretty standard, pretty easy. Looks kind of like a primary school practice on how to draw letters, but I promise you, it's just good practice to sort of refamiliarize yourself and get back into the basics of dealing with curves and all the fun stuff that comes with it. So this is probably this is an intermediate shape. It's going to handle all the concepts that we just sort of dealt with, having to build in our previous examples. It's a little intimidating at first. It looks deceivingly simple, but to do it, all we have to do is start and drag out an anchor point. We can come down to this sort of line here, drag out another anchor point. All right, so we're here with our anchor point. Sorry guys, I just had to pause the video one more time and I lost my spot. So if I took a step back, I apologize. We have our anchor point here. What we want to do is we would like to, sorry, I'm just going to Command Z a couple more times, just sort of back to the beginning. My apologies. I'm going to drop an anchor point at this intersection here, and I want to just actually drop the anchor point and sort of hold shift, draw out these handles just a little bit so they match our curve. Now I want to come all the way down or all the way up to the tip of this point here, and I'd like to draw out a curve so that the bottom handle hits the sort of top of that line. And what I can do now is I can hold Alt Option until I get this sort of pointed angle anchor point adjustment tool, and I can actually sort of angle this guy out a little bit. I can grab this anchor point, hold shift, and bring it down to sort of the in-between of these lines. And I can keep holding Alt Option and sort of just making these really tiny adjustments until I get the perfect curve that I'm looking for. I can hold Alt Option again, click on the point or the vertice here, and I can draw out a similar handle to mirror the one on the other side. And after I've drawn that out, I can come up to this intersection here on the opposite side where we drew our path, and we can hold shift and drag out our handles until they match up with the shape underneath. And then finally we can come back to the top and complete the path, hold shift and drag to the right ever so slightly until it sort of completes our shape. And there we have a proper teardrop sort of shape to work from. Now, I created one more. It has no reference dots or no reference lines. It's a little bit more of a challenge for you guys, but if you're up for it, I highly suggest you go through with it. I'll leave that guide to you. And once again, I'm sorry for jumping around in terms of steps. Just something else happened outside my window that I had to break up for. So on the last page here, I've given you guys something that's a little bit more complicated, not overly so, but just enough to give you a bit of a challenge. And I'll just quickly go through a little brief sort of how to handle this one. There might be a couple sections where you have to break your angle in order to get it to work properly. So I'm just going to show you guys, if you were to do this, drop a couple of anchor points, try and match the direction as best as you can. Sometimes it'll want to work better than others. I'm obviously not, providing the best example right out the gate here. But basically what will happen if you guys have a anchor point and you need to sort of break the angle, I'm just drawing out a shape here. If you press Alt Option and just click once, it will get rid of the angle that is supposed to come up next and allow you to just draw on a brand new angle. So you can see for some of these more tight corners and points here, it's probably going to be a bit of a challenge to get that lined up properly. So that is one technique that you can use in order to sort of deal with those really tight curves and corners in there. But this is sort of the most challenging sort of option practice for you guys to get reacquainted with. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a brief review of the pen tool, one of the most powerful tools in Illustrator if used properly, and one that I hope you guys will get very familiar with over the coming semester. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.